You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Moline, the co-author of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I'll be sitting down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. As always, please like, share, comment, subscribe. And if you'd like to join in on the conversation further, please go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success, and join the Roofing Success Facebook group. So today we're going to talk about increasing your revenue a little bit, right? Like that's kind of the basis of what we're going to talk about today and how to do that, especially in storm damage restoration side of things. So today we have Jordan Edwards and Jake Thalwitzer with Contractor Supplement Solutions. And these guys are, they're big time, right? These guys have been in the industry for a long time. They're very successful and they have some great insights to share. So let's introduce yourselves. Jordan, please introduce yourself and a little bit about, how you got into roofing and what you do. And Jake also.
Yeah, definitely. To start off, I appreciate you having us on the show today, Jim. This is awesome. So, I got into it when I was 19 years old. I was a freshman in college. And I just saw the opportunity from some guys from Minnesota, actually. So I started selling roofs at night, just like everyone else starts, door knocking. And then I got into the industry and really actually worked for a bunch of different companies, and just really learned the industry and how this works, especially exact mate pricing and how the different states are priced when there's different rules. Every storm I'd go to, I'd learn something new. And that's why we've really created this service, is because pricing is all over the place. And we've really figured out a way to capitalize and make sure that our profit margins are all what they should be. And then Jake and I, we actually grew up together. And when Jake was going to college, I was kind of storming and doing this and telling Jake the whole time, once you graduate from college, Jake, we really got to do something. And so that's what we did, is we started this company called Contractor Supplement Solutions. And it's just organically been amazing. But I'll pass it over to Jake.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of different supplement companies out there. And, what I think makes us a little bit different is what Jordan said. We come from a background of being in contracting. So we understand the needs of contracting, the needs of, companies and salespeople to have things done quickly, have them done right, and to always, respond to people within timely measures. As Jordan said, I came up storming. That's my background. But then, wanted a white picket fence and a dog and all that sort of stuff. So we moved back to Florida, started Contractor Supplement Solutions. And, we organically grew it to a company of 40 people. And we help contractors anywhere there is hail or wind damage. And we even side off and do some public adjusting work locally. So we're contractors who got into the insurance world as opposed to insurance people who got into the contracting world.
Yeah. Awesome. We were talking the other day, and this is kind of what sparked a lot of this conversation and getting you guys on the show, but we were talking about like a lot of misconceptions, and especially around like the 3 trade rule and stuff like that. Jake, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So, back in the day, people always used to think, 3 trades and we get overhead and profit. And then they moved it to, some people say 3 trades, some people say complexity, some insurance companies just say no overhead and profit no matter what. So, one of the common questions I get from people is, can you get me overhead and profit? And my answer is, I can get it where it can be gotten. So anybody who expects overhead and profit every single time on every single claim has, over expectations, and we like to underpromise and over deliver on what we do. What we do is we put the job through a process that, makes it to where if the overhead and profit can be got, we will get it every time. One of those things I say to contractors, they go, well, how much money are you going to get me? And my answer to that is as much as it can be. whether I get you $0 or $1 million, my job is to maximize the job in the littlest amount of time. And that's what we do through our process.
So that's interesting, because really, I think that's what a lot of the misconceptions on the supplementing side is. It's not, contractors aren't just trying to get paid for what they are supposed to get paid for. They're just trying to get paid something. They're just throwing stuff out there. And what, you had mentioned there is maximizing the claim, but in two ways, right? Maximizing the claim in terms of dollar amount, but maximizing, and that's getting what you deserve on the claim, right? But on the other side of it was with a time consideration.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that it's, if you're fighting over one line item that is, $200, people have different, mindsets on it, but I'm under the mindset, if it takes you 70 days to get this $200, let the $200 go, close it out. We'll always let the contractor know, hey, maybe this, or this, but in the time constraint, this is where it should be. And it's one of those things where, a big thing in the industry, or it was a couple of years ago, was the DMO versus RFG thing, where, the Xactimate defaults at a demo labor rate for removing shingles. But if you move that labor rate to a roofing, then you're going to get 3 times the amount of money for it. My perspective may be different than some other supplement companies and contractors out there. It gets approved 1, 2 out of 100 times unless they per bid your estimate. And my opinion is that if you per bid our estimate, you're going to be super happy no matter what it is. And when you put the DMO line item in there, you're creating more back and forth going on with the file, which will increase the time frame of what is to close it. And business owners have cash flow things, and salespeople need cash in their pockets. So we work as an extension of your company. So we do whatever you want. If somebody wants me to argue RFG, I can do it, every day, twice on Sunday. But our standard is that it's not worth it because of the time it takes as adverse to what you're actually going to get over, a large amount of jobs.
Yeah. And that is a major consideration that I think a lot of contractors don't take into consideration. It's that cash flow, right? You got to get these checks coming in. You got to pay your salespeople. They have mouths to feed. You have mouths to feed. You got to keep. You have to consider both of those things. You were talking about. We were also talking about like the 3 supplements that have the most value.
Sure. So most value, of course, is overhead and profit. That is 20%, or cumulatively, it's 21% additional on top of everything. I think that at the end of the day, and it kind of talks into what I was talking about before, getting the right price on it is the most important thing on there. So overhead and profit, when I talk to an adjuster and they go, hey, let's go over every line item on the estimate. I like to step back from it, because what they may do is they may fight me on line item 2 and 3 on there, which may be worth $30, but they're giving me line item 30 and 31, which is $3,000. So I step back, I go, hey, what's the end date figure on this? Let's start from the bottom, and then we can work our way up. Because if I start from the bottom and I know where it is on the price, if I was at 10,000 and it's at 20 right now, most likely I'm good and I can, breeze past some of these smaller line items. So overhead profit being one, which is most important. And then for roofing jobs, ridge cap, people always go, hey, there is ridge cap. Why should the insurance company not pay for ridge cap? Well, some insurance company protocols have it to where that field adjuster's not allowed to pay for it. But while he may not pay you for ridge cap, he may give you 25% waste on the same job. So we kind of know which insurance companies pay for which things, so we can kind of stride back to where we talked about closing the file with the most profit in it in the least amount of time. And then after that, I would go into your code items. A lot of people always go, well, the local building inspector doesn't enforce it, so it won't be added to it. Well, if the state does, and then, our 905.1, which says that you have to follow shingle manufacturer installation instructions, you can build that into code, then you can get those things approved a lot of the time. Expecting that you're going to get everything approved every single time isn't going to happen. But again, we put files through a process that we're going to get all of it added as much as it can be added.
And that's the unseen value, is that we actually know what to fight for at the right time. And when you have either a sales guy or somebody in-house doing it, you really don't know if they're making those right calls. And that's with our experience. We are actually making sure that we don't make the adjuster upset. We're playing within the rules, and we're making sure that we process the claim as fast as possible.
So Jordan, give me an example of that. Like, asking for the right thing at the right time kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Jake really can clarify that a lot better. And it's really the relationships, and they know which insurance companies to talk to and which manner, which ones to push on. But go ahead, give us some of it, for instance.
Yeah. So again, it's one of those things with Ridge and Starter. Some field adjusters have protocols out there that won't allow them to approve Ridge and Starter, and they'll tell you they never can. But that desk adjuster, when you actually send in the supplement, will approve those things. So the front end adjuster is not allowed to, but the desk adjuster has different privilege. Also, another thing is that some people look at jobs and say, look, I got $500 a square on this job. I don't need to supplement, or I got $350 a square on this other job. I should supplement. Now, most jobs, not all, but most jobs can benefit from a supplement. But you may get more value supplementing on a job that's already at 500, because you may be dealing with a better insurance company, which has more liberal writing standards and can move a 500 to a 650, as opposed to moving a 350 to a 400. Look, the 350 to the 400, the job probably needed it more. But do I get more value of going 500 to 650 or 350 to 400? I get 3 times the value over here. So when people look at a job and they go, oh, I'm paid fantastic on this. Look, you only get paid. Insurance companies don't approve things that aren't necessary on the job. So they're only they have people, we don't send in estimates and they go, yes, that's approved. They have to be legitimate things. And then but they're writing standards that $500 claim may prove Ridge, Starter, supervisory hours, things of that nature, where the other company may just move from 15 to 20% waste, which isn't doing you as much favor. So the more value is not always done from having the insurance company you're dealing with has way more to do with where you're going to be at the end of the day than the actual job itself.
That's interesting. And that is a point for everyone to really think about. The insurance company has different underwriting standards and guidelines that they are. So each insurance company is different. So knowing the insurance company is your gateway to knowing how to supplement that job. Is that that's what you're saying there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Look, if we're dealing with Allstate and it's a roof only, we're not gonna standard ask for overhead and profit on that job. Not because it may not deserve it, because it's a waste of time in 99.99% of the scenarios. But if we're dealing with Chubb, then asking for overhead and profit on a roof-only job it should be had. And, moving into how one roof can be more than one trade, if a roof has drip edge and the drip edges and the gutters are nailed through that, your roof only turns into taking the gutters off. And then best practices, if they're spiked through, means you have to replace those gutters. It could have flashing that extends underneath the siding. So we may have to take off that siding, or if it's stucco, we may have to cut 6 feet up and then match the paint on that stucco. And then, so there's different things. And if the roof is against a pool screen in the back of the house, best practice may be that you take off that pool screen to begin with, or you may have to replace that. And then the sun fades those pool screens over time. So it's going to be a matching issue, because a pool screen that was black that's 20 years old isn't black anymore. You can't match fade.
Give it to him, Jake. Give it to him. There he goes.
You can get into doing more trades with just a roof. But if I do that argue with Allstate, they're not going to take it, and it's going to waste your time and your cash flow. Whereas if I do that argue with Chubb or a better insurance company, your Amicus, things of that nature, there's more room there, and you have a better chance of success, and it's worth your time.
So I think it would be very valuable. And I know you right off the top of the head, you probably know this stuff, which is crazy to me. But, so give me a breakdown on the just you did a little bit right there, right? Of who to ask for what, right? Like a little breakdown on the carriers and and what definitely you're looking for with them or not looking for. Just kind of a
Sure. So, we talked about top line overhead and profit is the largest thing there. Liberty Mutual and Safeco, with just supplementing on the back end, not going to appraisal or litigation, but just supplementing on it, you're not 99% of the time going to get overhead and profit on the roofing portion of the job. They may give it to you on those ancillary trades on the other side of it, but if it's mainly a roofing job, they're in 99.9% of the time not going to do it. That said, and a lot of the times, same with American Family. American Family is more of a northern insurance company. They're going to want unredacted subcontractor invoices to get you overhead and profit. But why are they asking you for the unredacted subcontractor invoice? Because they want to get what you paid for labor and material and give you 20% on top of it. Which, if as a roofing contractor, you're really charging 20% over what your base costs are, you're probably out of business already. Yeah. So you have to know when to give those, if you give a subcontractor invoice, always make sure it's redacted, meaning that your dollar figures are not on there. But because they may go and say, well, we're going to give you the 20 on top of that, and you can find yourself in a negative supplement situation. So those are a couple examples of where you wouldn't want to do it. And then, of course, where you would, your Amicas, your USAAs, your Chubbs, your Ameriprizes, those are, you're going to get it a lot of the time. Then you have middle grade insurance, State Farm, things of that where, it's kind of hit and miss on who you're dealing with within that company where you may be able to get it easily and not, and it's situational.
You had mentioned appraisal and litigation. When would you say a good, where's the line? Where's the line where we say, hey, let's go to appraisal, let's go to litigation, things like that? What's your opinion on that?
Sure. So with appraisal, first you have to know, is appraisal even allowed within that insurance policy?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's not. And even sometimes that it is allowed, both the insurance company and you, the policy or the homeowner, have to agree to it, which a lot of times the insurance company is not going to agree. Where I think appraisal has some value is if there's 30 shingles that are approved on a roof, and it's a 15-year-old roof and it's too brittle and there's patching issues with the granules and sun fading and things of that nature. Those claims are ripe for appraisal. Because appraisal, you're arguing the value of the claim and of those trades. You can't, for instance, under most circumstances, if there's lots of interior damage in the house, but the interior isn't approved, but the roof is, a lot of times you can't argue that interior damage on appraisal. And if you do, the insurance company can go, well, that's not covered under the policy of it. So I think that where appraisal is allowed, partial roof approvals are a big place to do it, and then also where the value of the claim is a big spread. If you're at $15,000 for a roof, or if they're at $15,000 for a roof, and you're at $50,000 for a roof, then there's enough spread there to pay for the appraiser, which may be, I don't know, we use round numbers, $1,500, and then a possible umpire, another $1,500. Right now you have a $3,000 cost into that. If I was only fighting for $5,000, is it worth it to spend $3,000 the good over a potential $5,000? Not under most circumstances. So on the spread going to the longer end, and when it's allowed, and when the homeowner is on board, because the appraisal has to be asked for a lot of times by the homeowner, those would be circumstances where appraisal is good. Litigation, it's very dependent on what state you're in. A lot of different laws out there on how it is. In Florida, litigation can be at no cost to the homeowner in some circumstances. Whereas if you're in another state, they may take 40% of the claim and it has to be $100,000 minimum to take it. So, full denials on there, and it's very subjective based on the state you're in.
And Jim, that's part of our service is we can kind of guide you in which ones to fight on and which ones not to, and the whole deal.
And that's really what it comes down to, is a lot of it is knowing when to fight and when not to fight, right? There's times, right? But there's times to move on. And even like you're saying, even like you said earlier in talking about just, going over line items, like there's times to just move on. Let's get the job done. Let's get the homeowner or building back to where it should be, and do a good job.
Especially for your salesman, and if you have an in-house supplementer, both of those services, you don't want your salesman dealing with that and getting denied and just wasting energy, which time is money, right? We want them out selling roofs. And then if it's an in-house person, we tell companies, don't fire an in-house guy. Just send us the ones that are overflow or ones you're having trouble on, and we can help you with that too. So it's almost like a tool in these companies' baskets.
Yeah. What do you think? And I know you guys definitely have some, knowledge on the public adjusting side too, but where do you think that relationship should be between the adjusters and the contractors, and how do contractors keep and develop good relationships with those adjusters?
Well, first, before I pass it over to Jake, for us and anyone we tell that owns a company, is we don't want to make them mad. For one, we want a good relationship with the adjuster, and Jake is going to tell you kind of how we make sure that goes smoothly.
You get more sugar than you do with salt out there. If somebody's going to say no to you, if you bark and whatever it is, you're not going to get anywhere. It's just going to hurt that relationship. And with us as a supplement company, when we hurt a relationship with an adjuster for you, they're going to go and tell the homeowner. The homeowner's going to tell you. And you don't want extra problems. We don't want to be in a thorn in your side. So it's negative to us to ever do that. Look, we're professionals. Yeah. So, if I ask for anything on an estimate, it's because I have a significant argument of why it needs to be added. If the insurance adjuster says no, it's not personal. He may have a boss. He may have something else. You never know what's going on. So being professional and treating it as a profession in what you do, and staying that way, staying calm, is always the way to get more. And you get more by being that way than the opposite, which is just not how you should perform business.
And if you're a company owner, you have no idea what your salesmen are saying to these guys sometimes. Yeah. It could be, a lot of owners are really weary of that. Are we going to make them mad? It's like, you need to make sure your guys aren't making them mad. So this is kind of a safeguard for that owner to make sure they're fighting for everything that's legal and right. You know what I mean? On that end.
Yeah, definitely. What, we were also talking a lot of times, especially for the stormers, right? The guys that are really, really going, hey, storms are in Oklahoma, I'm in Florida, I'm going, right? Like those types of, the stormers out there, we were talking about the differences in pricing and Xactimate, right? And how it varies like a lot sometimes, right? From place to place. So how can that stormer, the person that's really the company owner, whatever, when you're really out there chasing storms and going into new areas, with what kind of knowledge or kind of walk through that process and some of the things that you see from state to state and jurisdiction to jurisdiction and things like that, and Xactimate and ways to mitigate that risk when you're going to a new area.
Sure. So, with new areas, there's different codes that are in new areas. You can always check the code real simply online, see what it is. Roofing's not rocket science. There's drip edge, there's valley liner, there's ice and water on the eaves. Some places you have to do impact resistant shingles, but it's not craziness going in on the code end. And the good thing with insurance work is that they're going to approve in most cases whatever those code items are. Pricing with roofing labor and such is different in in some states than others. In some markets, you can't get labor under 100 a square. In some markets, if they pay over 75, they're in trouble. So people bringing in their crews from a higher expense state to the lower expense state, if you're bringing your own crews in, can find difficulties.
But to touch on it, I mean, if we can fast track that when you go to another state, and we supplement in 50 different states, so we know we stay quarterly updated. And yes, as a business owner, that's like the number one tip. When you go to work a storm, check Xactimate, check pricing, know what your codes are. And Jake and I, every state that was new for us, we would find something new that we can make more money on the supplement, or that just needed to be charged.
Yeah, like we supplement Hawaii, we supplement all over the place. So, what we do is on the codes, we have a shared folder where we have specific codes for the states that we're in, and then those municipalities, and we update those as needed. So, when somebody calls me from, Minneapolis or from Atlanta or from wherever this is, we already have done our homework. And if we haven't done our homework, we create the file, and then the homework is done for the next 2, 10, whatever it is, contractors we deal with in that area. Xactimate pricing is done by the month you're in. Right now, every single month or two, or twice a month now, people are getting, price increases on shingles, on metal with the tariffs, on wood. We all hear that all the time. So Xactimate does compensate for it, but it's a little slow to compensate. When you go into a new area and a hurricane hits, that price list of that month that the hurricane hit in is much lower than it's going to be in 5 months. And what you'll see is the next month, the labor goes up maybe 10%. The next month, it goes up another 10%. So it's not that, why didn't it catch up 20% to begin with? Why is it moving 10 over 10 over 10? And so you see where that goes. So we check the pricing of where the estimate is at that time versus where the current work is being performed in. And we use the best of both worlds on it, because both is the right way to do it. So again, it's just putting all your jobs through a process to make sure that those things are asked for and addressed. And when all we do is supplements, it's simple for us to answer the phone when an adjuster calls, or know to ask for the price list change, But when a sales rep is out there and they're on a roof or they're in their car and they talk about an estimate, and the adjuster goes, "Hey, I'm at this price right here," you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, that's fantastic." But you may have missed some significant thing that's in that estimate that you just made an agreement on. Whereas we're always answering our phone, we're in front of a desk, we've got teams of people who do it. So, it's putting it through a process that's repeatable for that business owner to do those things that they do best.
For sure. What's your number one supplement? Like, this is the award on the wall. Like, this is the one, like.
Yeah.
Wait, is it value or what he got?
either one. Like, what,
okay.
Yours, Jake, like your personal one that's like, this is the one, man. Like, I this is the project. Tell the story of the project a little bit.
Sure.
And
well, adverse to getting in trouble, I go with my team and I go, what line item can you not get here? Which means, if we sent this estimate back to the contractor without this line item on there, we're in trouble. And my first thing on that are building codes.
Yeah.
Building codes. Look, if I'm in an area that, you have to put Valley Liner in, Isowater or, Valley Metal or whatever it is in there, and I send an estimate back to a contractor without that in there, and it's not saying, hey, look, they don't allow for it because of a coverage thing, then, I'm in trouble on that. So, moving away from trouble, so making sure that all codes are approved in that area is first and foremost. And then after that, look, there's a bunch of interior on the job and we're doing drywall, insulation, things like that, and the roof, I don't care unless it's one of those, Liberty Mutual things where they're just not approving it on the roofing section, the overhead profit. We need to fight hard for that. Look, I'm not going to take one no for an answer on those sort of things. We're going to make sure that we go after those. And then, of course, your ridges and starters, and you can code down your line of from there.
But Jim, I'll give you mine. So Phoenix, Arizona, I did not know what a swamp cooler was. And I learned I learned our roofers could pick it up and do what they need to do on the the actual stand of the swamp cooler, but to do it correct with code, you need a crane. So he was able to get cranes on every single one of my jobs for them to lift it up, make sure we sealed and put the base underneath it, and it was OSHA certified. And that was probably one of the craziest charges I've ever seen.
That's awesome. Yeah, and yeah, those swamp coolers aren't. They're not easy to deal with up there, so I'm glad you got a crane up there.
They need a lot of money in swamp coolers.
But you can see the value to a $15,000 roof, and then you have a crane charge. So in an overhead and profit, you know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah,
and
for
complexity.
sure.
They love to say complexity. What's more complex than having a crane out there to have to take out another trade? That's where you go. It's one of those things that you put in that way. And again, I'm more of a sugar than salt person. I always think that if you can make the adjuster laugh, if you can do those things, if you can normalize them and day for them in what you're doing, and you have the comfortability of how you talk about that job, you're going to end up with a lot more on that job than if you're just going, you go, I need a crane because of that, And
the truth is, it's safety. Like, he was guarding our crews from having to lift these things up, maybe hurt themselves. And this was OSHA certified. So we sit here and laugh about these charges because we made a lot of money on it and we found a way to make money on it. But it was the correct way to do it. That's what I mean? To OSHA standards.
It's all about that being. It's really what you're doing is just getting what you need to perform the job properly and safely, right? It is part of that, right?
Yeah.
What do you you guys dealt with homeowners a lot. I know you were out in the field a lot and stuff, so, how do you have those conversations with homeowners? What's that conversation like? And what are some tips on making sure that the homeowner really understands that you're not just trying to, suck their policy holder, right? Like, you're not trying to just make more money.
Exactly. So with that, I always say, if you tell somebody something is going to happen and then it happens, nobody's surprised.
Yeah.
So when you sign that final contract with them, you get a first check, you pick up out the shingle color. At that point, you say, hey, look, sometimes the insurance company can miss things. Sometimes there's a building code issue. Sometimes there's a measurement issue. Sometimes we take off the roof and there's something that nobody knew about, like an extra layer of shingles or an extra layer of felt. So in those times, we go back to the insurance company and we get them to add those things. Look, the insurance company plays judge and jury on there. If we're asking for something that's not necessary, they're just going to say no. So if the insurance company adds those things and we, the contractor, perform the work, then we expect to get paid for that work. If we didn't do that work, then of course we wouldn't expect to do that. So I think that if you educate that homeowner ahead of time about it and you have that 2-second conversation, if you don't, what's going to happen is you're going to send in a supplement. The adjuster is going to call and say, hey, they asked for $10,000. They go, ooh, what? And you create that surprise. And even if it's the most legitimate thing in the world, the shock and awe of what just happened, you won't be able to work out of that uphill battle with the homeowner, and you're going to have a hard time collecting that money at the end.
Yeah. So the way we train like an actual business owner to tell their salespeople what to tell to the homeowner in a short answer is to say, hey, listen, sometimes these insurance companies miss stuff on these estimates that they give us. And what we do on every claim is we just check their work. So if there is an additional money that will be had, we're going to let you know. And so what we do is once he gets a supplement approved, he lets the salesman know and the business owner know, so then they can contact the homeowner in front of that check. And that's the way you train your salesman to actually communicate with the homeowner. And that's all it's all about, is communication.
And, it's one of those things of, hey, great news. The insurance company paid enough to get everything done. You're only out of pocket your deductible. And
then if you trade the salesman saying, hey, listen, it's $10,200 you're going to receive. Now the salesman knows the amount. Now the homeowner knows the amount, and that check's on its way.
You don't say, "Hey, I got $5,000." You say, "Hey, look, they missed overhead profit. They missed valley liner. They missed ridge cap. They didn't pay for the ridge caps on the roof, so they got those added. Those were another $1,500." If you explain the actual items that it is, and then you talk about the number, then you find yourself at an easier way. And if you have that conversation to begin with, then it's not a shock.
What about the conversation of overhead and profit with the homeowner?
Sure. So as a contractor, you sub out work to another company. So if you sub out that work, then you need to be able to make a profit on there. So when you supplement for overhead and profit, you have to show that insurance company, look, we subbed out that work. So they pay a negligible margin, which is 20%. As we mentioned earlier, 20% doesn't pay the bills. 20% is one of those things that if you really made that amount of money, you'd be in trouble on. So it's just explaining the process of what overhead and profit means. Look, they paid on an incurred basis because you don't actually hire that general contractor. You don't actually get the overhead and profit until you do what's necessary. Sub that work out. We subbed, they approved, it's added, we did the work, the insurance company paid for it. You have only your deductible out of pocket, all is right in the world.
What do you guys, I get this question a lot, or people like when I'm talking to contractors, and it's especially on storm restoration work, what's a healthy gross margin? Right? Because we know 20% you're going out of business.
Well, first off, it all depends where you're working at. So we know, we can tell you which state are more profitable than other states, but Jake, go ahead.
Sure. For instance, what he says is, Maryland, which is cool, is they pay 15% overhead and 10% profit there, because Maryland is a state that has very high fixed expenses for businesses. Yeah. So do I think that 15 and 10 is enough? No, I don't. I think in general, you need to be based on the job that you're doing. If you're just doing a roof, if your only job to do on this thing is a roof, you can probably work on a little less on the 35 and up to over 50, given the scenarios of complexity of the job. But if you're doing the roof, the screens, the gutters, the this, the that, look, whoever made money putting on a window screen on a house, it's almost as hard as putting on a roof to an experienced contractor on there. So you have to increase your margin because you have to have all this back end that's dealing with that. Insurance restoration work must have a higher margin than retail work. You have to float that money as a contractor. Retail work, look, that work gets done, you're paid. Insurance restoration work, now we have to send it we have to get the right amount at the end of the day from the insurance company. We have a mortgage company, we have to send it away. ABC's looking for their money, 30 days, and it doesn't take 30 days. You're floating margins on it. So it depends what the sort of work that you're doing.
So for those more retail contractors or people getting into the storm damage restoration side of things, what's a normal timeline for your checks? What can a contractor expect, right? Like, because their cash flow can be an issue when dealing with insurance companies.
Yeah, I mean, just for Jake answers this one, to touch on your last one, we tell them, hey, pull your P&L before you work with us, and then give us a year and pull it in the end. Mm-hmm. And on average in Florida, if you're a $2 million company, we can add about $300,000 worth of business to you. And that's, so just to talk on that, that's just Florida alone. Yeah. But yeah, go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, well, I think you're talking about $1 million business. We can add $300,000 of margin on there. That said, and can you repeat that question one more time? I apologize.
So more. What is for someone getting more? Just someone that's kind of starting out in storm damage work, or thinking of, hey, I'm a retail guy right now, but I'm going to add storm damage restoration. I see it in a lot of markets now, right? We have a client up in Rochester, New York, and he's like, man, we're starting to get some, like, I'm seeing storm damage work. I see it now, right? I see it. Companies in Maryland and in different places that maybe they're not the Texas, the Florida, the, Oklahoma, the, Minneapolis, Denver's, where it's all storm work, right? Like, or majority storm work. So for those people, to manage their cash flow properly, they need a proper expectation of when those checks come in, I think. And so what do you guys usually see on that side?
Got it. So, with our process, look, if you give us one supplement, maybe it'll take, 4 days, maybe it'll take 40 days. But on average, we're right around a 21-day turnaround on a volume number of jobs. Because, if you're dealing with State Farm, there's big rooms of adjusters, anyone can answer that question anytime on that specific job. Look, that goes quicker. If you're dealing with the king of the claim, where that's the only person who can answer the phone on that job, it may take a little bit longer of a time. But in general, our process takes right around 21 days on an average. But then remember, there's 21 days. So what people in the insurance restoration contractors typically do is they create a backlog. If you're in a business where you sign up that contract and you put it on the next day, well, you're that 21 days, now you're just waiting on that money. So if you can create a sort of backlog or even an artificial backlog, if you have, look, we schedule 2 to 3 weeks out, then you can start that process early so that by the time that job is done, you then have that 21-day mark done. And then you have to now send an invoice to the insurance company, get a final check, get the mortgage company to endorse it, get that back. Expect that can take another 35 days to happen just on that end. And that's the insurance business, and nothing to do with the supplement in general.
That's probably our biggest compliment in this. Like I get on Instagram all the time, guys saying, thank you, really sped up my cash flow, because we don't know sometimes these sales guys sometimes treat them as paychecks. They might not release that depreciation for another week because they want to push back that paycheck. So that's what it's all about on our end, is not only improving profit margin, but speeding up cash flow.
Yeah, I saw a commercial for, I think, Morgan, and they go, hey, your lawyer may be broker than you. Sometimes with initial, look, and nothing wrong with it, but in initial salespeople, they need that money yesterday.
Right.
And
That's right.
as a business owner, they need release depreciation on a job where they're leaving 30% margin, which will double, look, if there's 30% margin on a job and we get you an extra 30%, we doubled your profit margin on there. So they may leave that money on the table because they need that paycheck yesterday. So again, you put it in a uniform process where these things get done, and we understand the needs that the salespeople get paid in a timely manner. We take it all into consideration.
Nice. And in that getting additional profit margin, this is again speaking to those people who don't understand the process a lot. When you were down in Phoenix getting those cranes, you didn't get the profit wasn't on the entire amount that it cost to rent the crane, right? You had to still rent the crane.
I think back then it was in 2010 we were there. I think I made an extra $1,000 on the crane, but you were just about to say where the money is. It's in the overhead and profit.
It's in the
so that made it
exactly.
It made it complex.
Yeah. So what you're doing a lot of times, you're getting everything you need from the job, but you're getting that overhead and profit on the expenses of the job also. So on the cost of that job.
It's
and you guys have been in the industry.
It's work you're already doing. We just know how to lay out the picture of to get it paid the right way for what you're doing as a company.
That's right. What do you say? I mean, I don't run into people in storm damage areas often that contractors that talk about this, but every now and then I do, and it's speed. And they skip the supplementing process to just do the job and just get the job. Most of the time, they're not the most well-established contractors in the area. Most of the time, they're just trying to chase that next check. But what would you say to those guys?
So speed is very important, because the longer your customer has not paid you on that job, the more chance problems can happen in the interim that'll create them not paying you on that job. So I think that there's a happy medium where margin hits speed on there. I think that if on average you're in a market, say that on average you get 20% above on supplements in a not great supplement market. In Florida, you're 35, and some lesser states you're at a lesser margin because there's less codes, things of that nature. But say you're only getting on average 20% for a round number sake. But your job, your average making insurance money 30% on there. So if we add another 20% to it, we're almost doubling your margin on what that is. So now it's, how do you value doubling your profit margin on the job? If it makes me expend 120 days, it may not be worth it, because I could deal with sales rep issues over here where they need to get paid quicker, collections issues over here because the customers have the money too long, and just ABC and Beacon issues because they needed to get the money. So I think that making sure that you get things done in a timely fashion, where if you can get it done quickly, that 21 day. If on average you're moving at that ratio, and you're doubling your margin, I say it's worth it, as my opinion on it. But some people, they may just look, they don't have the infrastructure within their company. First off, they never built that infrastructure, and they go, look, I just get paid the next day. But with insurance work, you're not getting paid the next day unless you finance it, because there still needs to be that 30 days of the mortgage company, the other stuff, unless you're telling them to come out of pocket, which, again, that's hard to do with homeowners.
And in my short answer to that is, if you give us a supplement within a timely manner, like right at the claim, or you make sure that we have that adjuster's information, we get it in a timely manner, we can have it hopefully done by the time you're scheduled to build the job. You know what I mean? So it's really an inexperience of that new guy that's just trying to turn and burn, we call it, right? And so what we say is, hey, listen, give us a shot at supplementing it, still build it. And if you don't have the supplement approved by the time you build it, then that's on you. But I would never, to a new guy too, if they build this job that they don't supplement on, you can sometimes come out of the job in a negative, and that's even worse.
Yeah, salespeople need to make money. You know, if they come out and they make $1,000 or $2,500 on a job, you know, that is going to get retention for you as a business owner. And, you know, how a sales rep gets paid on that first, second, third job is going to influence. They've got a wife at home. They've got whatever. Hey, I'm going to make $1 million on whatever it is. But they come home with $1,000 first paycheck on there. They're hearing it at home, and they're hearing it from themselves. But if you can make that margin feel right, you know, then it tends to, I think that it's definitely worth the time frame.
And he's right. When you hire someone, you can say, we have an in-house service to make sure we maximize the profit in all your claims. And so if you're hiring as a business owner, it's another service that you're providing to that sales guy. And what did he just do? He interviewed with that other roofer saying, hey, you have to supplement on all your claims, but we do this in-house and we charge you this.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys have both been around the business on, you know, many different sides for a long time. And so I want to ask you each individually a question that you know, what do you feel is, so we'll start with Jake. What is your greatest insight that you can share with of how a contractor can find success in roofing?
Sure. I think that success is drawn by, look, you got to get sales. Sales makes the world go round. So sometimes I see people who try to perfect a process. They're trying to get their marketing right. They're trying to get their logo right. They're trying to get all these things right. But if you just build revenue, you know, get sales. Sales will make the world go round. And then not hiring quick enough and trying to do too much themselves. You know, your time is your most valuable asset. So when you can, how you value your time, if you can pay somebody else at a lower rate than how you value your time, and you can then grow that thing bigger, then you have to do that, and you have to make those choices all the time, and then it works out at the end more often than not. So I think that you know, building sales is the most important thing, not being scared to ask for a sale.
Awesome. Jordan, what would your greatest insight be? How to find success in your roofing business?
Yeah, I mean, Jake just hit it right on the head. I think we have been real successful in the businesses we own because we're not micro. A lot of business owners that we talk to at these expos, that is that's the thing, is like, I have to be like, release that, spend your time on what makes money. And so that's like Jake hit it right on the head. We see people don't know how to scale it in a way that they want. And so that's kind of my biggest tip, is just hire the right people right from the start, and then do what makes you money, which is going out and getting the jobs, period. Yeah.
You got to trust people, you know, you got to trust people, you got to hire people and trust them. And look, if they don't work out, look, I'm not big on firing people, but if they don't work out, when you hire somebody for $50,000 a year, you're not paying $50,000 up front. You're paying $1,000 a week. You can find a $2,000 mistake there. It's not the whole salary you're paying them. And you get the benefit of being able to maybe grow.
And I do hear all these different pay scales. Pay for performance is something we really, Jake, in our supplementing to our PA, we only pay our employees to performance. So he actually has these guys in there fighting for their commission checks on your supplements, is how it works. And that's how you need to pay your salespeople. This salary stuff, it's for the birds. These guys need to go out and get it, eat what you kill.
I love it, man. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more sales through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com and get a copy of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.